Hello and a very warm welcome to Engineered Unicorns, fantastic books for a magical lifestyle. My name is SandyJ and you are listening to Campusradio Karlsruhe. Now, it's already December and the weather is not so nice outside, so it's cold and it's dreary and you hardly ever see the sun, at least in Karlsruhe. The last month was very, very grey and very rainy. The last 2 days we even had a slight storm, and in Karlsruhe it's too warm for the snow to fall, at least in the plains, and if you go up in the mountains there was probably some snow, but in Karlsruhe in the city there was rain and it was really miserable. This calls out for a cozy Bookdragon edition of this podcast, and this is what you will get. So it's a special edition. And first I'm going to give you a small update about November, but then we get all into coziness and how to create this. So let's get started with the update. So as I've said before, November was dreary, it was cold, it got progressively colder, and we hardly ever saw the sun in Karlsruhe. And yeah, it was really miserable from the weather point of view. So it was best to just hole up at home with a nice mug of tea and some nice reading, or with your favorite games when you prefer to play games. In general, this was my month. I got some stuff sorted. Thanks to a friend, I also got some old technology to the recycling center. Weirdly enough, this unblocked something in my mind, and so I'm now even more into sorting stuff out. And I also sorted out some books, and I already brought them to the Campus1 free library that's covered at the University for Music in Karlsruhe, and there's a book cupboard outside where you can bring your books and where you can find something to read. And I already brought some books there, and I'm still sorting out some books, and so I will bring them there whenever I need to get new coffee beans by the roaster on the old Schlachthof. I'm so looking forward to getting rid of some books and making space for the books that I read. November consisted of trying to get through the drudgy parts and sorting out stuff and reading a lot and trying not to get sick. So in December, the weather will probably also not be nice. Today it's also dreary, though it's currently dry from what I can see, but it's still windy. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's probably the wind. So to make yourself a cozy Bookdragonish home or library nook in your room or in your flat or your house or whatever your situation is, to get the basics down, I still recommend Colin Cowie Chic, because that's a book, as I've said in an earlier version of Engineered Unicorns, where I recommended this book. It's a guide how to live your life in style and what you need for a good working home. He has some routines set out there, what you need to do. He has some ideas how to travel well, even though we can't travel that much currently. But the ideas and the tips he gives are really helpful, I noticed. And I used his recommendations definitely for my life, and so I know it works. And whenever I feel like I having run into a roadblock, I tend to go back to that book and look what he recommends, and then I find my way to whatever I want to do. For instance, he is also heavily into editing your stuff and your lifestyle. So when you don't use stuff, it's good to pass it on in a responsible way. And it's not good to have everything cluttering up your space. And he does that with editing his wardrobe and his life. And so I find his book highly recommendable and highly useful to get your basics down. And then the Bookdragon part, which he hasn't, what I recommend for this. You need, obviously, books in your favorite genres. For Library Nook, you need books. You don't even need a shelf, just your favorite books. Then, in my opinion, fairy lights come in quite handy to make it cozy. I prefer the plug-in fairy lights because buying batteries is just annoying and it's bad for the environment. So plug-in is the way to go. And now, because it's shortly before Christmas, you get actually those fairy lights which are plug-in because they're more a Christmas thing. And the other fairy lights that come with batteries, you get year-round. So yeah, now is the time to get fairy lights with plug-in version. Then you need I need a comfy reading chair or sofa, or maybe if it's your bedroom, a very comfy bed. Naturally, blankets, pillows. If you are like me, I have also stuffies. As a matter of fact, I have 2 tutorials from my neighbor tutorial. And I have a small and a big one, and they are quite nice to lean on when reading. And then you need, or in case you want to create this, a table or safe surface for your mug with hot tea, hot cocoa, or mild wine, or Glühpunsch. For those who don't know, Glühpunsch is a version of Glühwein or mild wine, but it's free of alcohol, which is a good thing. Especially if you need to drive later or you just don't want to drink alcohol. So Glühpunsch is the way to go. You also might need a safe surface for candles if you like them. And naturally, you also need your favorite books. So whatever kind of genre you read. Since you listen to this episode or to this podcast, my bet is that you are not opposed to fantasy books. So I do have also some cozy reading recommendations for you and some cozy TV shows. For the young readers and for those people who also enjoy a children's or middle grade book, I can highly recommend Kay O'Neill's The Tea Dragon Society. They're books that are really nicely illustrated, and the story is also quite wholesome. It's about tea dragons. That's small, nicely looking creatures, and they have tea leaves growing on their head, different kinds. There's rooibos tea and green tea and black tea, and there's also peppermint tea and stuff like this. This dragon is usually cared for by one person. The representation in this book is very good in this series, and it's just absolutely adorable. So I highly recommend the Tea Dragon Society. Then another classic series is by Alexander Volkov, The Wizard in the Emerald City series. Alexander Volkov took the original and made a whole series of it. So I grew up with those books and I absolutely love them. So I still read them whenever I feel the need to read some nice cozy books from my childhood. And an absolute classic is Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. I also like those books and I read them whenever I feel like this. When there was a bad day, I don't want to read anything too high-minded or where I know that it's safe to just read them, then it's definitely Mary Poppins or The Wizard of the Emerald City that I turn to. For young readers, those are my recommendations. Then I absolutely adore micro histories. One of the histories that I read years ago is Londonopolis, A Curious and Quirky History of London by Martin Latham. And this book is absolutely gorgeous. I have a a hardcover edition, and it's nicely illustrated. The stories are just too cute. I highly recommend it. It's really a cozy read. Then I'm currently still reading Helen Babb's Adrift, A Secret Life of London's Waterways. Helen Babbs is a writer, and she lives on one of those long barges with her boyfriend, and she talks about it and how she explores London and the British waterways. It's very cozy read. I highly recommend it, and you learn quite a lot about the backwaters of London, and I really enjoy such books, and so those are definitely recommendations. And as always, you will get all the books that are mentioned in the show notes on your podcast app or on our website at Campusradio Karlsruhe. Then mangas also can be a cozy read, depending on what you like. My cozy recommendations for you are Wotakoi, Love is Hot for Otaku by Fujita. This follows a group of friends who are otakus. Otaku is a Japanese term for fans who are very into their respective thing that they are a fan of. It follows a couple and their friends and their lifestyle. So she draws mangas herself, and he is the gamer, and they knew each other when they were quite young, and they meet again, and she felt like she had to hide that she's an otaku, but he knew her, and so they get together, and it's quite a good match. And then there are their friends and the younger brother of the main character, and it's really an enjoyable book or series, and I highly recommend it. Wotakoi, Love is Hot for Otaku by Fujita. And last but not least, the series that is called Sweat and Soap by Kintetsu Yamada. And I highly enjoy this series because it's also a love story, and female main character sweats a lot. And because kids are not the nicest, she was teased for it in school. It went pretty far, so she has a chip on her shoulder because of all the sweating, but everything is fine with her. She just tends to sweat a little more than other people around her, but it's nothing to worry about. And the male main character, he is someone who creates soap, so they are both working at a soap company. And he smells her first. And so this whole love story ensues from there. And it's really quite nice. I highly enjoy the series. So Sweat and Soap by Kintetsu Yamada. It's quite unusual. I haven't seen a story like this anywhere else. And so I really enjoy it. To read this, and it's wholesome and quite funny, and mangas are for grown-ups. So if you like mysteries, then the Flavia De Luce novels by Alan Bradley are cozy mysteries that even I like. I tend to not read mysteries because I hate it when books start out with a murder or something like this. In this case, it's absolutely funny because the Flavia De Luce novels follow Flavia, and she's a 11-year-old at the start of the series, and she lives in a great house in the British countryside right after the war, right after the Second World War. And somehow she always stumbles about murders or corpses, and then she solves these mysteries. And she's also special in that case that she's absolutely obsessed with poisons. So because she lives in this big old country house, and her family used to be aristocratic and had this house for generations. There was a uncle, great uncle or something like that, who used to be a scientist, and he had a laboratory, and she uses this laboratory, and she helps and annoys the local constabulary, and it's quite an enjoyable series. I quite like it, and I haven't read all of those because there are already 10 books. I stumbled upon it, the German first book of this series, on a holiday, and even my dad read it after me, and he liked it. So that we have overlapping interest in books is highly unusual. Alan Bradley, the Flavia De Luce novels, highly recommend them. And they are also available at the Karlsruhe library system. I know that for a fact. With the other books, most of them are probably not available at the Karlsruhe library system, except maybe for Mary Poppins. I'm pretty sure they have that one. Maybe even The Wizard of the Emerald series. If you don't want to read, but just watch some shows, I also have a few recommendations for you there too. One American show that is absolutely cozy and that is a go-to for me when I just want to relax are The Gilmore Girls. It's already 20 years old. I loved it, and I watched it when I studied engineering for the first time. It's a lovely show. Currently, I'm much more into K-dramas, so I just don't like American shows anymore, and I prefer Korean dramas. So my pick for coziness and really enjoyable and relaxing shows are Her Private Life, Coffee Prince, and Secret Garden. Her Private Life follows an art curator, and she's also a fangirl, and the shenanigans that ensue through that. It's highly enjoyable. It's such a good drama. Coffee Prince is a relatively old drama, and Secret Garden was 2015 or something like that. Coffee Prince follows a group of people who run a coffee shop, and Secret Garden is about a stunt girl. It's one of those body switch stories. So she switches the body with a guy who runs a department store. So it has fantastic elements and it's quite cute. So those are definitely enjoyable K-dramas. So if you prefer to just watch something, then those are my recommendations. The Gilmore Girls, Her Private Life, Coffee Prince, or Secret Garden. I also quite enjoy these days to listen to an audiobook and then just play Animal Crossing. There's nothing bad happening. The worst thing that can happen on Animal Crossing is that you get stung by a scorpion. So it's quite relaxing to play Animal Crossing and just to listen to an audiobook. Highly recommend this. And last but not least, there's also quite a lot of Booktube you can watch. Booktube has quite a lot of good videos, and a lot of them are cozy, and a lot of them just now give out some cozy book recommendations and cozy life recommendations. So I highly recommend them. Morgan Long is, for instance, a YouTuber who does very, very relaxing videos. I quite enjoy her videos. So check her out. And this is it for this episode, actually. I don't have a book release for you this month because couldn't find anything that I liked for that month. So just read your backlist. So this is it for this episode. You can find all the books that I recommended in the show notes again. I wish you happy holidays, whatever you are celebrating. I hope the weather is fairly nice for you. I hope you and your loved ones can stay healthy. This was Engineered Unicorns, Cozy Bookdragon edition. My name is SandyJ. You are listening to Campusradio Karlsruhe. The music, as always, is by Erwin Schmidt. Happy holidays and a good start into the new year. See you soon.